Hello, Teach Better family. This is Brianne Fennell. I am coming to you live with Katelynn Giordano and Dave Schmittou, and we are going to talk about their newest book. Don't go away. Grab a drink and join us in just a few moments. Welcome back, Teach Better family. I'm Brianne Fennell. I'm a training and development specialist with the Teach Better team, and I'm here with Dave Schmittou and Katelynn Giordano to talk about their newest book, Poking the Bear. Thank you so much for joining me on this Friday night, and we can't wait to dive in and talk all things. So, for those of you that do not know Dave and Katelynn, I'm going to give them just a few moments to tell us a little bit about themselves. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to start with Katelynn.
Well, hi, everyone. I'm Katelynn Giordano. I am a middle school English and history teacher in Illinois, previously on the Teach Better team, and do a ton of different things around my district, and, co-author with the great Dave Schmittou.
Oh, you're funny. And I'm Dave Schmittou. I am literally just Katelynn's groupie. I follow her around, wear shirts with her name on it, write books with her, do whatever I got to do to hang out with Katelynn Giordano. Even if that means just getting into arguments and debates often, just so that we can hang out and talk. And just super excited to be part of this project with her.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing those things with us. As you can see, right beside their names, there are some ways to follow them. You definitely want to get connected with them on social media because they are sharing all over the place about their new book, but they are also sharing some really interesting podcasts and ways to get connected. And you do not want to miss out on any of the exciting additions to Poking the Bear. So let's just start off a little bit about like how you guys ended up co-authoring together for this book.
I laugh because whenever this question is asked, I feel like we have a slightly different answer every single time. I like Katelynn's version of this way better though. So I'll let Katelynn share.
Okay, so Dave and I are both very passionate about arguing with people. No, I'm just kidding. Dave and I are both incredibly passionate about sharing our voices and having conversations that we tend to avoid because they can be a little bit uncomfortable and they can kind of take us outside of our comfort zone when we have these conversations. And this is like something that both of us have been passionate about forever before I think we were even connected. And then we started connecting on social media years and years ago, just kind of like following each other in the background, seeing what people were doing. I have been a huge Dave Schmittou fan for too long, way too long.
This is why I like Katelynn's version.
And just kind of following what he was doing, buying his other books, just being like, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. I really agree with a lot of what he says. And then Dave reached out to me at one point and was like, hey, how's it going? Like, how are things doing? And we started talking a little bit more like in like more private conversations just between the two of us. And then one day Dave sent me a video and said, hey, do you want to write a book about challenging people and arguing and debating on really difficult topics? And I watched the video and was like, yeah, I do. Yeah, I do want to do that.
We've had the opportunity to connect quite a bit. It was a year and a half, 2 years ago, we did that Focus on the Focus series. Mm-hmm. And we had so much fun doing that, just bringing in educators and having conversations about the things that matter most and having people really articulate what their priorities are, both in the classroom and in leadership and just all things in education. And from then it just started spiraling from there. And we realized that we love having those conversations with people and having people not only hear our voice, because that's not really what this book is all about, but really trying to get people to amplify their own voices and helping everybody else chisel away at their own images. You know, one of my favorite quotes from Michelangelo, when he was asked, how did you make that great statue of David? He said, I just looked at the block and chipped away anything that didn't look like David. And I love that quote, because I think that's kind of what we want people to do as well. We want people to become their own version of David. Well, I want everybody to be a version of David, but we want everybody just to start chiseling away all the things that don't look like them and don't sound like them. And we want to be able to lift up their voices. You know, one of my big goals in life outside of this book and within this book is I know that we now live in the age of the algorithm, where we live in these bubbles where it sounds like it's our own voice just bouncing back at us, and we only hear people that we think sound like us, feel like us, and believe like us. So I want people to start to really question what they do believe, and if they're just trying to believe what they think everybody else believes, or do they truly own what they believe. So one of my goals is to take the people that are in my algorithm that are already exposed to me and throw things out at them that might shock the system and say, what do you think about this? Just to see how they'll react and to see if they can chisel away at what they believe. And that's one of the purposes behind this book, is just to give people something to react to so they can start to find their way.
I think that's one of the things that I love about the Teach Better team, like connecting, especially during the pandemic, is that I was able to really branch out and connect with people that think differently than me, that teach different than me, that are from different places, even that aren't Ohio, you know, that are just different. And I know how much Dave loves Ohio.
I can understand why that would be so gratifying to find some people that aren't from that state.
Right. So, but that's, you know, that's a great way to, you know, think about it, is just trying to, you know, think about what you actually believe without, you know, losing your core values.
Yeah, so that's exactly what it is. Yeah, I think some people believe that Katelynn and I just want to kick the hornet's nest and stir the pot. And sometimes that's true, but that's not what it's not about just flipping over the tables. It's about trying to bring people around the tables. And there's a big difference, right? We don't want people that just are in the amen corner, just saying, preach it, I believe everything that you say. We've got enough of that. You can go out and buy books from a lot of people these days if you just want people to say the things that you already believe. This is truly an opportunity for people to start to figure out what they believe and to push back. And I think that's what's different about this is, honestly, I don't care. I don't think Katelynn cares if you disagree with everything you read in this book, as long as it helps you find your own voice.
Absolutely. I think that was one of the really cool things about even writing the book, was we came up with all of these like common questions or like controversial topics that come up in education all the time that people kind of shy away from or don't want to talk about. And I think it was such an interesting exercise, even just for me to write what I thought. Because yes, obviously there's like pressure, like it's in print, not like and people are reading it. But there was also like this idea that we needed to like really flesh out like, okay, what do I think? How do I feel about this? Where does my opinion even come from? And then reading Dave's side of everything, reading Dave's chapters on everything was so cool, because I would read through his and be like, okay, that's an entirely different perspective that I didn't necessarily think of when I was writing mine. And I thought I was trying to be very like purist while writing the book, and only wrote my sections without reading Dave's first, because that was like one of the things I was afraid I was going to do, was like read his and be like, oh yeah, that's so good. So I didn't actually read, I don't know if you know this, Dave, I didn't read anything that you wrote until the entire thing was done. And that's when I went back and read everything that you wrote and was like, okay, that I'm glad I did it that way, because it was interesting then to see how you and I in a lot of ways align. Yes. But even if we arrived at the same conclusion, and a lot of times we arrived there differently.
Yeah, no, I agree. I feel like going back and having read it now, because I hate to say there were parts of this where I had to read your thoughts first, because I was like, I have no idea. And I was going to just straight up write my sections with a giant, that's what she said. Like literally, I was just, whatever she said, I agree. But you did say some things that I heard and I was like, I don't know that I agree. And that was so fun. Oftentimes we find co-authors that we know believe the same things that we do, co-authors that are going to be able to hold our hand through the process. And this was one where we were able to have some of that autonomy, where we said, what are some of these questions? You write your opinion, I'll write my opinion. And we didn't even have to sit down and debate them or discuss them, because ultimately that's the goal. Is we wanted people to be able to have something that they could react to. You know, I say often, you can't steer a parked car. We wanted to just get the car in motion so people could then bounce off the rails. And then there's truly space within the book for every single chapter, whether they're 24, 25 chapters, for people to then take their own thoughts and contribute to the book as well, and write their ideas and their opinions, and then go to their peers, their coworkers, their loved ones, and get their reactions. And you can do this independently, you can do this together, but trying to find everybody's unique voice.
Yeah, it's cool because it's not just like a sit and get type of book.
Right.
It's not one that like your aim is to sit there and take a highlighter to it. Like, I think we even wrote that in the introduction. Like, that's not what you're doing. But the idea that like, okay, you have a starting point from hearing two different perspectives, and now there's literally spots for you in the book to share. Like, okay, what do you think about this? And then after you talk to people in your circle or in your bubble, what do you think now? Or what did your conversation yield? What was the production or the product of kind of debating that, or even just entering into a conversation with somebody else? And I really hope that people take that extra step. Like, that is the one aspect of this that I really truly hope that people do, is not just develop their own thoughts, because that's awesome. Yes. But to take it to that next step and really go out there and have a chat with somebody, whether they agree with you or not, but engage in that conversation. Because that's truly how we all get better, is not just by, okay, yes, I've read what two people who I may or may not know think about something, and now I think this, but continuing to challenge ourselves to talk about what we believe and hear what other people believe and why they believe what they believe. Like, that's where the growth comes from.
Yeah, for sure.
I love that so much. I teach my students, and I feel like, why can't I do that for myself? Like, I teach my students to we either say like, I respectfully agree or I respectfully disagree, and why. So like, if you have disagreements, like, it can be healthy, and it can be, and I feel like the book does such a good job like outlining 2 points of view without saying like you're wrong because, or you're right because. It's just like, they're just two different things.
Well, I do want to be clear. If people disagree with me, they are wrong. But I want them to be able to clearly explain why they're wrong. And I can respect their ignorance right now. Eventually they'll come around, but no, I'm completely kidding. But I think that's 100% right, Brie. I think we're in this age now where we tend to believe if somebody disagrees with me, they're a bad person, or they're just stupid, or we label whatever the case may be, as opposed to having the empathy to try to figure out why they believe what they believe. Or we don't even take the time to really examine why we believe what we believe, which I think is such a profound exercise as well. So we recognize that in education, we tell educators all the time that reflection is so powerful, that you're supposed to reflect on all of your lessons. We tell our students, we want you to reflect and edit your own papers before you turn them in. We've all been classroom teachers before. What do kids do when we say edit your own papers? They just look at them and they say it's good enough and they turn it in. But we do the same things. We do the same things in our own life. We take our beliefs and we're like, it's good enough, and we just mail it in, and we never sit down to question. So we wanted to give people the avenue where they could start by evaluating us. Go ahead and judge us, critique us, and then figure out what you agree with or what you disagree about us, because sometimes that's the first step in you helping identify what you believe about yourself. So start with the evaluation, then you can start to create and then go to reflection.
Oh my God, yes. And okay, and I'm throwing this out there because I genuinely want to hear from people, but like, I love it when people disagree with me. I love it. And I love it. I do, Dave.
Do you?
Think I'm nuts? Yes. Just not you, because you're
wrong.
Okay,
fair enough.
But I love when people disagree with me, because I feel like that is an opportunity. Every single time somebody disagrees with me, I think of it as an opportunity. Not an opportunity for me to like change their mind, but an opportunity for me to hear somebody else's perspective, to hear somebody outside of what I believe, my realm is, share where they're coming from and share something that I might not have even considered. Like, that is so powerful to me when someone has the ability to step into a conversation and be like, yeah, I don't really agree with that. And here's where I'm coming from. Like, that's such a big thing to be able to do, and such a great place for me when someone disagrees with me, because I'm like, all right, this is something I've never thought of before.
I was thinking about this for myself. Like, if I, like, when I was going to do a penny for my thoughts, like, which section do you feel like, I want both of you to answer, was the hardest one for you to put into print?
This is an easy one for me.
Go, Dave, because I don't know.
So first of all, you talked about the penny for your thoughts. Can I talk just the simple structure of the book? I know we kind of hinted at it. So every chapter or every topic has each of our 2 cents. I don't even know if I ever told you this, Katelynn, or not, but originally, when I first became an administrator, I would have a weekly newsletter, and at the bottom of it, I would have Dave's 2 cents, and I would just have my opinion on something for my teachers. So that's kind of where that evolved from. So we have our 2 cents throughout the book, where we each share our thought. And then there's an opportunity for a penny for your thoughts, where you can then share your ideas and your thoughts and what questions as well. For me, the hardest one, without a doubt, is there's a topic or question. I believe it's simply titled, "Do Politics Belong in Schools, or Do Politics Belong in Education?" Mm-hmm. And preface this, I live in Florida, where there are very strong opinions about that question. And this is one where I struggled, because I was like, oh, what do I really believe versus what do I want to react to, versus if I were in a classroom, what would I believe? What do I believe about speaking up and amplifying your voice politically versus talking about politics in front of your students? Like, I wrestled with that one. And I must have written 15 different drafts before I finally said, okay, I think this is what I believe today. Granted, in 2023, 2024, it might change, but that one was really, really difficult, because it wasn't just this black and white line for me. There was so much nuance and gray that I wanted to try to explain to people.
Yeah, I agree. That one was harder. That one was hard. But I think the most difficult one for me was, do kids need a dress code? And I think I wrestled with that one a lot, because I have a very emotional gut reaction to that. And so writing what I thought was such a huge exercise in me, like, checking my emotions, and not like shelving them completely, because I don't think that they're wrongfully there. I think that they're there for a reason, and they're righteous in a lot of ways. But it was hard to be like, okay, we need to shelve this for a second and really think about where this is coming from, and really dig in to why I believe what I believe about this, and why I think it's important for us to look at this from a different perspective. So that one for me, I think, for similar reasons though, Dave, because there's a lot of nuance in that conversation, and I had to think really hard about where I was coming from.
I love just the idea, just explaining the nuance to this too, right? I think that's something that people are going to start to recognize as they go through this. Like, they're not going through and they're scoring. They're not saying, am I on Team Dave or am I on Team Katelynn throughout this book? I mean, there are times where we're kind of like saying the same thing, but very differently. And sometimes we're saying different things, but kind of the same. And I think that's what people are going to start to recognize as well, is that these are not issues that you can say, this is what I firmly believe. I'm always red or I'm always blue. There's so much nuance, and we have to celebrate that. We try it in society today. We try to boil things down to the least common denominator. And I think that's part of the issue. And that's why we just slap labels on everybody and everything, because we forget the nuance and how similar and how close we all are in our beliefs when we boil it down to the true essence of what we think.
Yeah, I love, our book lives in the gray area. Like, it's not black and white, even if, like, the questions, the way we tried to word them was very black and white, to kind of highlight exactly what Dave just said, that there's so much nuance to something that even seems so simple. Like, should kids have cell phones at schools? That's a yes or no question, but Dave and I did not answer with single word yes or no. And I think that is such a great way of, I love that we did it that way, because it's really showing like, yeah, we live in the gray area. The world is the gray area. There isn't just a binary right or wrong here, or yes or no, or black or white. There's more to it than that. And exploring that nuance, that more to it, is where the power is.
It's almost like there's a but what if, and then I don't know. There's so many good different parts of this book where I was like, I went through and like I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to read like Dave's reaction to this one, and then I'll go back and read Katelyn's. But there were ones where I like specifically wanted to hear your voice, because I could hear your voices in my head as I was reading these books. And I was like, okay, this section, I really want to know what you think. But what was interesting is like, I've heard your takes on these before, but you stayed true to those takes, I feel, in this book. Like, it wasn't like, oh, okay, I'm going to be super surprised by what Dave said, because that's not what he said before. Like, I feel like from what I've read so far, I feel like that is, am I going to have a surprise?
Well, obviously you haven't gotten to the section yet about who makes a better teacher, a man or a woman. So when you get to that section, I'm kidding. That's not there.
It's not there.
It's not in there.
But I definitely wanted to point out to our audience too that if you want to listen to some of these conversations, that we definitely wanted to direct you to the podcast so that you can hear some of these conversations and hear some of these conversations like dug deeper. And so I'm going to share that link too as well. My next question is just about your writing process. So obviously you guys are in two different places. You're not sitting down together at the coffee shop writing. So tell us a little bit about that. So I know that you guys decided you were going to write this book together. So just talk a little bit about like, what did that look like? Did you guys write separately and then put it together? Did you spend time on the phone? Dig into that a little bit.
So I honestly think the fact that we were not in the same space writing probably helped this project. Simply because I have so much respect for Katelynn and her point of view. And I know that if we would have sat down and started talking through a lot of the stuff, by the end, I would have just been mimicking her voice. And I would just been saying what she said. The way that we did it was we started this project. Wow. I don't even know how long ago, 18 months ago, 2 years ago. It was a while ago.
2 years.
Yeah, it was 2 years. My goodness. And we just started throwing out some topics. And we just came up with a huge list of topics and said, let's just start diving in. You go anywhere you want to. You don't have to start with the first one and end with the last one. Start writing. Anything that you feel comfortable writing with, go for the low-hanging fruit and just start writing. She started writing some of hers. I started writing some of mine. And we got together like once a month just to talk through logistics, to talk through questions, to talk through hurdles, to figure out if any of the topics were not resonating anymore, and to hold each other accountable. To stay on track, because we wanted to make sure that this didn't turn into just us pontificating, because this could have been an 800-page book of just our thoughts. We intentionally wanted to make sure that we left things succinct with each question we're answering in 2 or 3 pages max, because we didn't want to turn each of these could be their own book, but we wanted to give space for other people's voices. So I loved when we would come together and just talk, because we hadn't been reading each other's stuff. So we would give us an opportunity to lean in and say, what you really thinking?
Yeah, I agree completely that it was good that we weren't together, because I feel like I would have done the same thing. Like, we would have had the conversation and then the chapters would have been exactly the same, because we would have ended up being on the same page, or really like I would have heard what you said and been like, oh my gosh, that's exactly it. Ditto. And that I'm so glad that we were able to do it the way that we did. But I totally agree too about the way that when we met together and we're just kind of like talking through the topics, or we had a lot of conversations about something really similar to what you brought up, Brianne, but about how we were nervous about what we were going to put in print, because both of us are such huge advocates of changing your mind. When you learn more and when you engage in conversations like we do, a lot of the time you change what you believe because you learn a new perspective or new information comes out or whatever it might be. And both of us are huge proponents of doing that and not like harping against it because we both think it's a good thing. And so we had a lot of conversations about, okay, like, yes, this is what I believe, but do I really want to put that? Because what if I change my mind? And I think that's one of the big vulnerabilities in us putting the book out is the idea that, yeah, it's in writing, but I might not believe that in a year, in 6 months. But that was one of my favorite aspects of the support that we offered one another was like, yeah, but it is what you believe now and your beliefs are well-founded and you've done that work of engaging. And if you change your mind, like that's a good thing because you've learned more.
I love that so much. And I can just tell how thrilled you are about this book and this launch because you have not stopped smiling this whole time. So we just had a congratulations from Joshua Samper. He just had his birthday last week. So we're just about wrapping up here. So I dropped some links to your to the podcast, to the book. But this is your platform. Like, what else do you want the audience to know about the book or the process or anything else, how they can connect with you or stay, even how they can keep open-minded and stay thinking as they're reading this book?
So I'm going to say something, and I don't want it to come across like a sales pitch. So granted, it's a book launch, right? So we want you to go buy the book. But I'm not trying to get people to just go buy a ton of them unless they really, really want to. But I can just tell you in my day job, I get the opportunity with the team here to travel a ton and have conversations with people that they cannot typically have with each other. Because whatever we talk about in education tends to be a conversation about your values, your priorities, and it can be contentious when you start to recognize that people hear things and see things differently. But I will also tell you that flat out research-based, the evidence says the number one impact, the number one thing that we can do to drive student learning is have collective teacher efficacy, which means get people together to have conversations where they all then leave respecting each other, not necessarily agreeing with each other, but willing to toe the line together to say, this is what we believe. You know, AMLE, the great middle school organization in America, came up with the 16 tenets of this we believe. And when you have a unity around what you believe, it can take you to the next level. And what we want for this book is, yeah, we want people to individually sit down and wrestle with things, but we want it to go beyond that. We don't want people to sit on the beach with a highlighter, as Katelynn said. We want people to sit around tables and have conversations, to have the debates, to have the dialogue. So if you need to use this book like a virtual resource of me or Katelynn sitting in your staff meeting, sitting at your PLC, sitting at your grade level, where you say, let's just discuss what these idiots said about chapter 16, and then you debate us because that's safer than you guys debating each other, fine. I think that's an amazing first step to opening the conversation. And that's what we hope we can do. We hope that we can be the ones that start the conversations for you.
Absolutely. I have dreams of people using this as like a book study, as a way to start conversations with their group, with their people, with their PLC, with their school, because that is where change happens. That is where we are able to really have an impact on student learning and on education as an institution. There's a lot of talk right now about how we learned so much from the last couple of years. We've learned so many things about how we need to change. And we all changed because we had to. We made so many changes because it was required of us. But this is an opportunity for us to make change because we want to, because we are invested in making change. And that comes from engaging in conversations and pushing what the status quo has always been. That is how we improve. That is how we get better. And if this book can serve as that starting point, that spark, that fire, where you're debating our ideas, and from that comes whatever that new thing is going to be, I can die happy because I've achieved literally a life goal. So
thank you, Dave and Katelynn, for joining us today and having this amazing conversation. There's so much more I would love to sit down and talk to you guys about, and I'm hoping to do that at Teach Better 22. So if you have not already, get your tickets October 14th and 15th. And we will hopefully be getting some awesome opportunities to be able to pick up a copy of this book at the bookstore at Teach Better 22. So thank you again. I hope everybody has a fantastic weekend, and we'll see you soon.
So right now, I want to know if you're ready to teach better.
That's the whole mission of this weekend.
Just being here ready to learn and grow and come together like this is awesome.
What are those small changes that can make you better tomorrow than you were today?
All the amazing speakers we have here, wow.